Welcome to Miss
Hey,
Martin Muses and Pub Crawl. It is a time for another pub crawl. And here, making his Miss Martin Muses debut, is none other than Salty Traveling Sea.
hey, Teresa. Thanks for having me on. You and I worked together. Oh my God, it's almost 2 years ago. I think it was on a Wheel of Time show. I think we were talking about it on a Tuesday and had you stop in. And yeah, it's great to be on your channel. I know you're like a biscuit away from your watch hour. So
Yes.
I want to try and help.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Actually, it wasn't Wheel of Time, it was Lord of the Rings. I have yet to read The Wheel of
It was
Time.
yet another abomination. Yeah.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
going to. Because for one thing, that's what loads of people are talking about, but also it's just something I've been wanting to read for a very, very long time. I'm one of those weirdos that I know Robert Jordan from Conan and not Wheel of Time, though I definitely
Yeah.
appreciate the contribution he made. Well, so good to have you here. And today
Thank you.
our topic is going to be, what is it? Whiskey cocktails specifically and bartending war stories. Now, I didn't know that you were a bartender.
I was. That was a long time ago. It was in
Mhm.
college. It's when dinosaurs roamed the earth. That's back when you were like in you were 19, 20, and then you went to school and you had a couple jobs because
Uh-huh.
people used to have jobs like
Yes.
when they were in high school and then in college too, which
Mhm.
apparently is not a thing anymore, which doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I did that for a while. Had some pretty violent things happen, because I was a big dude, 6'5",
Mhm.
so it's like let's mess with the guy behind the bar. But yeah, whiskey, that's one of those things where yeah, I'm a bourbon guy. I grew up with my grandfather continually pouring a couple fingers of bourbon to live with my grandmother. It was back how it used to be in the 70s. Worked in a factory, came home, sat down, put on the baseball game, poured some bourbon in a cup, and waited for dinner to be made. And
Mhm.
sometimes he used to pour a little bit for my brother and I, and
Mhm.
then we'd play poker with him. So I just had this very positive male role model mentor association with bourbon and pipe smoke. So
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, and they do actually go together. And always here at Miss Martin Muses, we have a pub where our guest has us meet, and this is the Casino Bar. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, this is actually in the foothills and mountains of Idaho. And this is a place where Ernest Hemingway is a writer that I think has been deliberately left behind because he's inconvenient to the current narrative and agenda of what they're doing with entertainment and I'd say publishing as well. But when I was a kid, I loved Ernest Hemingway's short stories. I remember doing really deep analytical research for advanced placement writing projects I did, and then in college, not to mention a lot of the 30s and 40s and 50s movie adaptations of Hemingway's stories. Hemingway had a number of bars. He might have had just a little bit of a drinking problem all over the world that he loved. They were in Paris, they were in Venice, they were in Cuba. One of them in his later days in the 50s was in this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere in Idaho. And it was a place called the Casino Bar. And he used to come hang out here with all the locals and talk about hunting because, yes, Ernest Hemingway loved to hunt, loved to fish, loved to go pew, pew, pew and drink a lot of bourbon, among other things.
Mhm.
And so he'd go hang out in this place with all the locals. And this is just one of those places where I drove past this town last year and didn't even know that I did, because I
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
paying attention. And because I was trying to cut across Idaho and take a shortcut. There's no shortcuts across Idaho. There's
No.
you just got to drive for a long time and it's really hilly. But yeah, that's why I wanted to go there. And also, when I was younger, I used to like going to fancy places in my 20s and like, let's do this. And I'll have a Stoli martini dry, extra olives, please. Now I'm more of like, can I have a shot of wild turkey or rare eagle or Maker's Mark or whatever, Woodford Reserve, and then ginger ale on the side and just sit and savor and enjoy the ambiance of whatever's on the jukebox in one
Mm.
of these good old blue collar, just chill places where they have the American flag proudly flying. That's just my kind of vibe. And
Yeah.
yes, I am wearing patriotic leis today because I'm a cheesy dude. But yeah, there he
Yeah,
is. Ernest
we're
Hemingway.
patriotic glaze here at Miss Smart Muses. This is awesome. Yeah, so this is Ernest Hemingway at the pub or just normal
Yeah,
people?
this is him. This is him.
Yeah,
And there's
okay.
a famous story where he was talking all kinds of shit when he was drinking. Imagine that, right? About how we could out hunt all the local boys who knew the country very, very well. Well, they stayed up a wee bit late drinking, and Ernest, not being in his prime anymore, um, they said they're leaving the bar at 5 a.m. Well, 5:05 happened, and those boys took off in their pickup truck. Ernest Hemingway didn't stumble into the bar until probably a half an hour after they left, and they relentlessly gave him shit about missing that hunt for
Mhm.
the rest of his life. And he made sure that he was never, ever, ever late. When someone said we're going to leave for hunting at 5 a.m., that meant 5 a.m. So I thought that was like a wild story. Like, yeah, you're Ernest Hemingway and yeah, you're loaded, but we don't care. We're going to go hunt, you know? So I just think
Yes.
that's a cool story.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, hey, you snooze, you lose.
It's true. And hey, Jacob, it's great to see you. And
Yeah.
then Jana, is it or Jana or Kana? I
I
can
call
never.
her Jaina Catania, but
Jana?
actually, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Yeah, I was gonna say I said hi to them, and Jacob might. Yeah, yeah, it was
Wow.
good to see you. And Copa
Polyester.
Catania is the one. They're the ones that have been wanting me to do the close encounters, and I actually have it almost done. It's taken me 6 months to make this video. It's been one of the most difficult videos I've ever made. So Jaina, it is
Yeah.
coming. And correct us if we're wrong about the pronunciation. No, that's a great story. Oh, here we go. Rhymes with banana.
Jana.
Jana Catania. Like Jana Catania. Okay. Oh my gosh, I've been calling you Janie forever. Jana forever. Okay. Jana
At the Jana.
Jana.
Jana
Yeah, yeah,
Cabana.
Jan, yeah, yeah.
See what you did? You can't do that because I'll do things like that. But yeah, bartending, I mean, most of the thing about bartending is it's tremendous amounts of being sticky, wiping things down, making
Mhm.
sure that you have stock, followed by what seems to be endless amounts of time where you are absolutely overwrought and being told to do things while you're trying to do three other things, while having other people come up and ask you stupid questions and
Yeah.
then not make a lot of money doing it. And I think probably the most dramatic stories, and then I won't focus on them, was when I was in college, and this was actually in Charlotte, North Carolina before, and you can hear the sirens because people are shooting things off already. Um, was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is a bar called the Park Elevator Club. This was a dance club. Now, this place no longer exists because they tore down that whole region of Charlotte, North Carolina to put up a football stadium for the Carolina Panthers. But back in the day, this was kind of the hood. It was an industrial area. And this Park Elevator Club was tucked in next to a welding place. It was just true industrial stuff. And on Friday nights, it was an all ages dance club. So, didn't necessarily serve liquor. So I'd work the door, I'd make mocktails, kitty cocktails and stuff like that. Again, I apologize for the siren, all the idiots from Seattle or where I live right now. Um, and then on Saturday night, it was gay night. And so
Oh,
there I was, 2021, and I'm watching all of this things I'd never seen before, because that was
yeah,
the clientele. It was a safe place for the clientele.
yeah.
And, like drag shows and all this other stuff. And one thing I learned is if you're nice to people and you make them good, strong drinks, especially within that crowd, they tip very, very, very well.
Mhm.
Especially if you remember their names. Now, I was a pretty young thing back then.
I was gonna say that
Obviously,
probably didn't hurt.
they barked up that tree, but guess what? That's all right. I'm good.
Mhm,
It's one of those things. And then of course, there was always drama.
mhm.
Whenever you put drugs and crazy people and too much drinking and emotion in one place, there's a tendency for discord and violence. And
Yeah.
so more than once I've had to come over the bar with, a maglite flashlight with my co-bartender guy who was a National Guardsman with our big maglite flashlights and threatened to do bodily harm. And in some cases we had to,
Yeah.
because somebody was beating somebody else up or somebody pulled a knife on me. I was stabbed there. It's the only time I've been stabbed in my
Yikes.
life. So, thank God it was just in my hand. But needless to say, after that, my fellow bartender kind of went Conan on the guy. So that was
Oh. Oh, that's always
You
good to
just
go.
yeah, but again, this is what happens when you work in a dance club, you know? I
Yeah,
mean, and this was the world was a different place, you know?
yeah,
Like, in the very early '90s, we were just out of the '80s, so,
yeah.
yeah.
Is this a true story? Mr. Offer the Vampire says you met I met Salty at a gay that night we had
I
fun.
hate you spelled your name wrong, it's Blasferatu the Blonde whatever the hell it is, like, don't even ask him what that is. He replaced every consonant in front of everybody's name with BL for some reason. You can
Oh,
put
for
that in
crying out
chat,
loud.
but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Blonda, okay, I got you. Well, I'm feeling a little bit ashamed of myself because I do have some war stories, but they're nothing like that. I I went to mixology, got a mixology license for 2-week course and worked at Sweets in Indy Motor Speedway. So
Oh!
that's the bartending I did. I never actually did the wild bartending like you. So I really super rich
Oh.
white men for like,
I
and
I would not be able to deal with that crowd because the
oh,
sense of entitlement. Because I would sometimes freelance even when I was in college,
mhm.
like, "Hey, will you work this wedding? There's gonna be great tips." Guess what? There wasn't great tips, you know? I got the bride's mother hitting on me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm dealing with
Oh,
all kinds of crazy drama, and then whenever you go to like, you're going to someone else's family event, like a wedding or a funeral, and then some like a lot of people have too much to drink and they don't hydrate, then all of the emotions come out. You know what I mean? And
oh,
then
yeah.
if you're the bartender and you know you shouldn't serve them anymore, suddenly you are a target. And let me tell you,
Mhm. You're the bad guy.
drunk bridesmaids slurring their words, taking their high heels off to threaten you because you won't make them another Cosmo.
Oh,
Yeah.
not okay. Well, I just have such a different story because, okay, I'm a woman and old white men, and let's just say the
Mm.
obvious. I have something you don't have. And I got tipped like you wouldn't believe it by
Oh, I
these
believe
guys.
it.
I mean,
I believe
20
it.
bucks in that tip jar. And
Yeah.
so I was treated very well, and they kept their hands to themselves, but it was just like, and I wasn't even wearing anything uh
Sure.
revealing,
You
but
were
we
totally tarted up and you had your goodies out like
no,
this. I'm
no,
sure you did.
no,
Don't
no,
play the Catholic schoolgirl with me here,
no,
lady.
no,
I
it's a
know how
true
this
story.
bartending thing works.
True story, because we actually had to wear, like, a tuxedo, but even the women did. So it's, like,
Mhm.
up to the neck and everything. It was very but, hey, it worked. So, yeah, so lots of bartending, tips there. And this is my real war story. I used to also do some stuff for at church, Catholic. So
Oh,
for receptions, there was a reception after mass, and this is where I got my biggest injury from
uh-oh.
bartending. I had a wine key, and I was opening up a bottle,
Oh,
and it wasn't giving, and all that. And so help me, I must have. I'm very clumsy. With talent on loan from God, the bottle broke in my hand and blood's flying everywhere. And
okay, you're lucky to be alive, you didn't bleed out. I've never heard of anybody breaking a wine bottle while uncorking. Holy
well,
cow.
it got in my hand though, so it didn't get an artery or anything.
Okay,
But
but I'm
but
just
yeah,
saying it
but
could've,
but
like
yeah, and everyone's like, "Don't look, don't look." And then they were like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, so they got me to a hospital, and I learned that if you are bleeding, you get to go right in at the emergency room. You don't have
mhm.
to wait and go through all that BS. And so they stitched me up, and so I was okay. But yeah, like one side of my hand and the other side of my hand is like was just open like a slab of meat. And
Oh, yeah.
I was going, I'm bleeding. And
Yeah,
and
and that's the worst when they have to debride the wound and take out glass fragments because
oh,
that's
don't
where
even
it's
oh gosh.
extraordinarily
I was
painful. Yeah,
crying like a
yeah,
baby.
yeah.
And so they finally stitched me up and all that. And then the next day, the kids were like, "Miss, what happened to your hand?" I'm like, "Oh, I broke it." They're like, "Oh, doing dishes or something?" I'm like, "No." And then one went, "You were drunk, weren't you?" I'm like, "No, I was not drunk. Don't you
She
start that
probably
rumor.
was.
I'm not gonna take the emails." I
That's
so that's
funny.
my worst story of bartending was nearly getting killed at a reception after mass. So it serves me right for going to mass and doing a good deed. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's I do fill in. I mean, I have a career, so
mhm,
obviously, I mean, I bartended throughout college, and it was a great thing to do. And then, you get drinks, get your
mhm,
friends drinks.
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I understand.
You do that, and then you're a popular guy, and the ladies
Mhm,
used to like that too. And now I'll fill in for a friend of mine who has a restaurant because, I mean, we talked about it, when the show first started. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in it's a broad generalization, I understand, but in a lot of out of high school or 20 something kids to work the same jobs that we did, when
mhm,
our parents did. And it's something I don't understand because I live in a small town in the middle of nowhere, like out on the ocean by design.
mhm,
um, and it's crazy because there's people older than I am working so many of these jobs that you normally would have seen high school or kids in college because
mhm.
there's a college here working at, and they're not doing it. And I just think it's weird. I just think it's
Yeah.
really weird.
Well, kids just aren't working in general nowadays. It's,
Yeah,
I think I don't know why. Maybe parents aren't making them work. They're getting everything handed to them. I don't know.
I
Um,
agree. Sorry,
Melvin did.
I'm reading Nosferatu talking about me, beating the shit out of somebody at a Dawkins show. Yeah.
Oh,
Was that you? That would
oh, there
explain a
we
lot.
go.
Sorry. Yeah.
Melvin Dipley says,
It's
I was at a Florida bar in Havana and got a photo with the Hemingway statue they have sitting at the bar. Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That is cool.
We in, we in,
Legendary dude. I mean, I
yeah.
mean it again, and think what you will about him, but he lived his life, you know? He
Hmm.
lived his life, and he wrote some really profoundly different and I think just fantastic, literature.
Yeah.
One of the studies that I remember us having to do was looking at the total word count within a novel to tell a story.
Hmm.
And Hemingway was the king of economy. He just
Yes.
could tell a story in a way with a minimal amount of words and convey more emotion probably than, I guarantee you this, what they did in Indiana Jones 5 with
Oh,
$300 million in
yeah.
CGI, you know?
No, and well, less is more. Less is more. I One of the maxims I do with my writing is write tight. That was something my editor, he told me to buy it. He said, "Go to Barnes and Noble." That was before we had Amazon. "Go buy,
Yeah.
write tight, and live by it." Because if more words don't mean more.
No,
It's yeah,
no.
you can show off. And same thing with words. Even when you're giving a speech, it's like it's almost the height of pretension.
Yes, and it doesn't it's not just limited to the written word.
Hmm.
I think also on YouTube, some of the best
Hmm.
advice I got when I very first started was don't
Hmm.
repeat yourself. If
Yep.
you said something, you don't need to say it again,
Nope.
like a different way. Just say it and then
Hmm.
say something else. And I think that's the biggest challenge is you want to like say the same thing multiple times to reinforce what you've already said. And the problem with that is that your audience is smarter than you realize.
Yeah.
And that is something I always try and make videos that are assuming my audience is way smarter than I am and wants to be talked to like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hemingway was legendary for his drinking, for his hunting, for his womenizing,
Hmm.
all of which, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and look at life through 2023 because I was born in 1970.
Hmm.
I mean, it's wild. I was thinking about it that when there's a cocktail, or actually, no, this bar that we've talked
Hmm.
about, the casino bar in Ketchum, Idaho. That bar was built out of an original log cabin in 1920,
Damn.
which was 50 years before I was born. Okay.
Neat.
In 1970. Where are we now? We're now 50 years plus removed from when I was born in 1970, and look at the world now. Okay. Like it's
Dang.
staggering to start to think about that, where things were in the last 100 years. Now we've got designer injections that can, yeah, I'm not going to go there. It's not
Yeah,
my
I was gonna
channel, but
say, yeah.
we,
It's
we
like,
have a lot of technology that's being misused for profit and also for agenda. And it's just kind of crazy. It's just
yeah,
kind
we're
of
living in a
crazy.
dystopian
Yeah.
society. Well, speaking of drinks and
Mhm.
the like, I have up here. This is my personal favorite bourbon,
Ooh.
double oaked Woodford Reserve. I think this is a good
Oh.
opportunity. Oh gosh, it's so good.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I think this is a good
Sorry.
opportunity.
Fireworks. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all right. To mention the difference between bourbon and whiskey, because sometimes people think it's one of the same, and it certainly is not. I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we can get into the technical terms. There are some people that talk about much like with champagne, as opposed to sparkling wine. We know it in order to be qualified as champagne, it has to come from a certain region in France.
Mhm,
Bourbon does not all need to come from Kentucky. Now, Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, is responsible for over 95% of the bourbon distilling, creation, storage in the United States of America. But really, what categorizes something technically as a bourbon is if it has a corn content of over 51%.
mm,
And then they can do all kinds of things. And depending on how much of the other stuff they put in there, rye, barley, wheat. Wheat is what makes bourbon sweet. You know, that's why when
mhm,
you look at something like rye, why rye has that cool, clean flavor, you know?
mhm.
It's the mastery of blending that mash of corn, wheat, barley, rye, other things that produce a remarkable amount of different flavors. I love Woodford Reserve. As a matter of fact, I have
Mm.
a great story about Woodford Reserve, if
Yay.
you don't mind. So it's not the double oaked, and I've told this on my channel before, but I went to Walgreens to get like soap, and then
Uh-huh.
for whatever reason they sell liquor here in the Walgreens that I have, and I saw that Woodford they had a clearance sticker on Woodford Reserve. And this is in Washington State. It's $35 plus an ungodly amount of taxes. Well, I
Yeah.
went up to this rack. They'd reduced these bottles from 35, 36 bucks a bottle to $12.
Dang.
So your man Salty got every bottle on the shelf, asked him to go in back, got 10 more, and then drove around within an hour and bought all the rest of them. Like literally. So
Yeah.
I have my zombie apocalypse stash of original Woodford Reserve because at $12, Salty's mama didn't
That's an
need to raise
amazing
him to fool,
price.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. No, I love it. I mean, some people swear by, like, Maker's Mark and all that, but, once you find what's just, like,
Yeah.
perfect and my favorite, cocktail with bourbon is a Manhattan. This is a
Oh, I wish I
Manhattan.
could make you a Manhattan. That's one of the things I make a lot of for my friend who has a restaurant when her unreliable 20 something help doesn't show up and she's like, "Please help me."
Mhm.
I got a server out, like somebody's like dead or in prison or in jail. It's from the kitchen. So, your man Salty rolls up and then handles the bar duty and
Yeah.
gets a couple free filet mignons out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's one of the simplest cocktails to make, and the trick to it is a really good bourbon. Because there's
Mhm.
really 3 things that go in this cocktail, okay? The majority of this cocktail is bourbon, okay?
Yep.
It's not on the rocks, it's straight up. Then you have sweet vermouth. Then some people like to put a couple dashes of bitters, and that's where you can really change the characteristics of a Manhattan. And then classically, you put a maraschino cherry in. Now,
Yep.
I'm one of those people that likes to take the orange rind
Ah.
and twist it a little bit to get the orange oil released into this cocktail because I think it accentuates the sweet vermouth and the bourbon. One thing I will say is if you wanna try a hotter bourbon, than say like a sipping bourbon, Knob Creek Manhattan, when
Mm.
it's done right, will put you on the floor, and it's also really delicious.
Yeah, Knob Creek is good some good stuff as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, and of course, they can be served in a glass on the rocks. I don't like that. This is my preferred,
yeah. It
Manhattan
should
right
be
here.
up. You
Mhm.
shake it, it should be up, you pour it off. The cousin or brother of this is something called an old fashioned.
Oh,
Now
speaking
an
of
old
which,
f Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, the old fashioned. Now there are many permutations to this, many,
mhm,
many, and there's regional permutations to this. If you go to Wisconsin, it's generally made with brandy, and they
mhm,
drink it when they watch the Packers play. It's a true story. I prefer a bourbon old fashioned, and I make mine very different. Like my friend who owns the restaurant, she's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're putting too much bitters in it, and you're doing this."
mm,
And it's like, no, this is a good old fashioned. And she's like, I don't care how good it is. When people come into my restaurant, they want it to taste like this. So it's a little more sweet. It's got
mhm,
huge chunks of like lemon and orange in there and all this other stuff. And it's light on the bitters. And it's just funny, like
mhm.
people get a taste for something and then they think that's what that drink is. And I'm not saying my bourbon old fashioned is the best, but I think
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, I thought I had a picture in old fashioned. I sadly did not. Well, and what I was taught is that the best way to have a drink to serve a drink is the way that the client asks. So uh, if you have that if I have a preferred way to make, for example, an old fashioned or a preferred way
Mhm.
to serve a Manhattan, which is straight up, but if the person asks for it, with on the
Yeah,
rock. That's what you do, and so help me. This killed my soul. But once someone had some wine, some red wine, and they're like, "Could you get me an ice cube to put
I've
in this?"
seen that.
And it
I've seen that a lot.
killed my soul. But that
Yeah.
wasn't my job as the bartender. My job wasn't to sit and lecture them, tell them the proper way to drink wine. If that's what they asked for, that's what you give them. Yeah.
I'm I don't know what happens, like a switch turned in my brain after I turned 45 so that I will say things like that, like and I'll try and say them in the constructive way instead of a "what the hell is wrong with you" kinda way, but I'm still
Mhm.
working on it.
Yeah.
But I've had to do that. People have asked, "Can you just put a little Sprite in my Cabernet? I just want it to be a
Oh,
little sweeter." And I'm like, "Sure."
yeah.
And then they don't tip anyway, and it's like, "Yeah,
Screw
earn
you.
it." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, I mean, the Manhattan thing, I have seen people say put a couple ice cubes in it because I wanna water it down, and I'm like, "Then why are you having a Manhattan?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. Basically,
The
it's
weir
whiskey, bourbon on the rocks. That's basically
Now
what
th
you're.
this is gonna be confrontational, and I'd like to know where you stand on this,
Uh-oh.
Teresa. How do you feel about extraordinarily dirty martinis? Like mostly olive juice and vodka.
Well, I personally do not like that. I like
Yeah,
my when I did drink, I actually don't really do it anymore. I don't do it anymore. I like it extra dry. I
yeah,
don't like anything in it and no dirty or otherwise, and I
yeah.
like it straight up.
Can I shout some people out in chat? Of course, we got
Oh, sure.
Nosferatu, who continues to break my balls, never change, brother. We've
Okay.
got the one and only Roman of the Empire who's here. Dude, I know you know about whiskey and mixed drinks. There's a guy you should have
Hmm.
on your show, if you haven't already.
Hmm.
And smile
Oh.
a while for me, Sarah. It's awesome to see you. Thanks for
Oh,
popping
okay.
over here.
Well, thank
You
you for
guys
being
are
here.
awesome. Thanks, everybody. Please hit that thumbs up for Teresa. She's so close to monetization. So.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
and
and
you're
technically,
barmy. Sorry.
yeah.
I irritate him and piss him off to no end with the video I made today. He said he never double comments on a video, but the stuff that I showed him with what they were doing with Wheel of Time, he had to vet
Oh,
some more.
you
So you're
killed him.
barmy. Thank you for doing that. Really, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and technically, I should say that, the extra dry has more to do with, that means no vermouth,
Yes.
but
Yes.
yeah, but dirty.
I
It just
dr
depends on what the
I
people like. I like a lime twist, or I liked a lime twist, so.
I nothing kills me more than taking a top shelf vodka like a Chopin or a Kettle One
Mhm.
and them saying, "I want you to fill it pour a bunch of olive juice right out of the industrial tub of, like
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's like, if you're gonna do that, then just drink Smirnoff.
yeah,
Because, you lose the characteristics of what vodka is. I mean, now I love
mhm.
vodka. I don't drink it very much anymore, and if I do, it's only top shelf, and I'll have 1 martini and then be like, "Okay, I'm not doing that again for 6 years." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because it's
I understand.
too easy to drink. It's too easy to drink, it's too delicious, and you stand up because you're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," and you're like, "Okay, I just
And
drank that in 2 seconds," you know?
yeah, and then you stand up and you pull go timber like a
Yeah,
that's happened
but
to me in the past. Yes, a sour beer. Oh, I thought you meant sour drink. Okay, because actually what I have up there is a whiskey
yes.
sour. Yeah.
Yeah. What do they call them? Lambics, I think is another way to do it. I'm a big fan of raspberry lambics. Anything that has that sour taste with like real fruit in it. I'm a big fan of that. I really am. As a bartender, it's the easiest thing you can in the world. It's like I'd like a beer, and where I go help out at, they don't have taps, so I'm like, all right, here you go. You know what I mean? Like that's easy. As opposed to and still it's a nightmare is making several different Bloody Marys for the same party. You know,
Oh
everybody
gosh.
wants it a little different. Like, I want extra hot sauce. I want mine with the low sodium tomato sauce. I want
Mhm.
mine to have like that. And it's like, kiss
Okay.
my ass, you know what I mean? And then you're trying to figure out where, where's it going? And the clientele that we have here, it's summer people and everything coming in, and it's funny when you end up in a position where you work in a service industry, how people you can tell a lot about people
Mhm.
by how they treat the person behind the counter doing things for them.
Darn
Like
right.
these people don't know who I am. They don't know what I do that for a living. They just assume like they're in a position of power. So, and some people are like, dude, thank you so much for doing this for me. I know it's a pain in the ass. And those are the people that I would
Mhm.
always overpour for. And or be like, especially if it's a dude or like a guy that's older than me, I'm like, oh, I overpoured and give him like a little bit on the side of something he was
Mhm.
looking at behind the bar, because you want to return that respect. Because in a lot of ways, I think a bartender, like your barber, it's a relationship that
It
you
is.
want to keep positive, because
Yeah.
the barber can make you look like an asshole and so can the bartender.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not saying that we abuse our power, but it's been known to happen. You
Yeah,
know
well,
what I
especially
mean?
if you're a jerk.
Yeah.
Now I brought up here a mint julep, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about this. This is
I love them.
associated with, of course, the Kentucky
Oh
Derby
yeah. Yeah.
and the Great Gatsby. I always think of the Great Gatsby. I think
I
mint julep.
agree. Yeah. Well, that and gin and the bathtub gin and all a lot of these drinks go back to prohibition and then the very wealthy, and
Mhm,
they have stories around them. I mean,
mhm,
those classic cocktails like the Cesaract, like which
mhm,
was another whiskey cocktail, was from the Cesaract Hotel. There's all these
mhm,
stories and all these different permutations, and then hotels arguing about like who came up with what drink first. But the mint julep, again, it's another one of those dangerous cocktails where it's
mhm,
just so good. It's just so good, especially when it's really hot. Like,
mhm.
I remember being down in God, I think it was Charleston, South Carolina a million years ago when I had a girlfriend who was, like, the daughter of an admiral, and it was like, they're slamming these things like it's going out of style, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"I cannot keep up with this professional grade, old school plantation-y stuff." Like,
I was about
I'm
ready
like,
to say that's a Southern thing. It's
I'm
so
gonna
much.
need a wide open IV on my arm to rehydrate because it's hot AF, you know? You're
Yeah.
trying to kill me, I get it, But yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing, and, let's see. Now this is a simple one. This is a
Mm,
blendy whiskey, the Seagram 7 and 7. This was something I used to like because it's kind of like the equivalent of what a Jack and Coke would be. 7
yeah.
Up, a Seagram 7 with lime, a nice refreshing drink, wouldn't get you too drunk or anything, just something to sit and sip on and enjoy.
It is. It's one of those 7 and 7, it was one of those standards from the '70s. It was like a
Mhm,
very American brand in Seagrams, and, a lot of these distillers, because the competition on the market and other things like that, they're starting to use lower quality ingredients,
mhm,
and then a lot of genetically modified corn in a lot of these
mhm,
mash.
mhm,
Like, not a lot of people realize this, but for a long time, the only 2 distilleries that were committed to not using genetically modified corn to make their bourbon and whiskey, there were 2 of them. Only 2.
mhm,
One of them was Wild Turkey, and the other one was Four Roses,
mhm,
out of all of the bourbon distilleries out there. And there's actually marketing materials, and the last articles I found, I think, were back to 2008, and these distilleries said, "We do not know the long-term health impacts of using this genetically modified corn in our product, and we can't do that to our consumers."
mhm,
And I just bring that up because now it is impossible. Neither one of those bourbons state that they're committed to it. I think it's because GMOs have absolutely infested and permeated all of what were the heirloom strains of corn. And of course now
mhm,
we're using corn to put in our cars, which is dumb. But
mhm,
anyway, Seagram 7, again, classically American brand. You would have seen that in a lot of TV shows with hard-boiled detectives like Columbo. They're drinking
mhm.
7 and 7 with the big collars and everything else like that. But it is actually, I'd say, probably the most common rail or standard non-call bourbon that you're going to find, or whiskey out there that you're
Mhm.
going to find in most bars.
Yeah.
So,
And another one, I don't have a picture because was so stupid and forgot to bring it up. This was
mm,
something in Ireland, is what they would call Jim and ginger.
mm,
So that we used to order,
JMO.
Jameson with ginger ale with lime, and it
It,
was
it, it's
so good.
interesting. Yeah, and that see, and there's regulations, like we talked about what technically qualifies for a bourbon. Well, there is a maturation timeline for Irish whiskeys and what they need to be made with. I
Mhm,
believe they need to be aged for 3 years,
mm.
in a certain type of wood with a certain the blend can be a little loosey-goosey, but that's why if you've ever sat down with a flight of whiskeys and start out with a rye, go to a bourbon, and then have an Irish, and then do a Scotch.
Oh,
Just
Scotch.
because, oh, yeah, and I have a lot of scotch, I do, I just don't drink it very often because when it's almost like I wanna commit to that scotch, you know, and
Yeah.
I really like the Islay, I like the super smoky, like, run it through the chimney one more time type of a
Mm,
things, like I'm in a
yeah,
house fire in this whiskey is a breath of fresh air, that's how I like peaty and from the depths of hell kind of a scotch, but just looking at them and you can call all of them whiskey,
yeah.
you know? So,
Technically, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and, of course, the Scotch that has the legend, the rusty nail because the Rat Pack used to do those, which is with
Mhm.
Drambuie, I believe, if I
That's an
recall.
interesting drink. I mean, there are so many cordials, Teresa, that you will go and see. Like, it's almost there were so many more cocktails that people drank maybe when I was in college in the 90s that they just
Mhm,
don't drink anymore, and, like, how many people have a bottle of, like, Curacao or Galliano or peppermint schnapps? There's all these crazy things, right,
mhm,
that you use to make, like, one drink, that's out there, and then you keep that bottle for forever. The restaurant that my friends own, they have bottles going back to the 60s, some of them which were never opened with the
dang.
original things like and you may remember this from the 70s, they got Martini and Rossi. They have unopened bottles of
Oh, yeah.
Bartles and James wine cooler for those of you who are 80s kids. It's just kind of crazy to see all this stuff, and then, of course, Galliano and, all the hazelnut liqueurs and all these peach schnapps. You remember when that was a thing?
Oh, peach
People
schnapps, hell yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, all the girls wanted that peach schnapps, vodka, and orange juice, and let me tell you what,
yeah.
yeah, it was like an '80s Bryan Adams song. Everybody was happy that night, we'll just say
Yeah,
that.
it will
Yeah.
Chambord is one of my favorites. I love that. Well, loved that.
Okay, so Guinness, mixing Guinness. I learned this when I was in New England teaching, and they called it a, black velvet, and what it was is you poured a shot of, uh, oh god, what was the purple stuff you just said? I'm getting string right now.
Chambord?
Chambord into a pint glass, and then you filled it up with draft Guinness,
Mm,
and that was a purple velvet. And
yeah,
it
that's good.
sounds creepy and weird, but it's freaking delicious. And then the other thing you can make with Guinness is, of course, put Guinness in champagne,
Mhm.
Guinness and cider, snakebite. I mean, talk about getting messed up really quick and not even knowing it. Those are delicious. They're just
Yeah.
delicious. So,
And
yeah.
in Ireland, I would get Guinness with a little bit of black currant,
Mm,
not a liqueur or anything, just a little bit of
mhm.
black currant poured on top. But they're a little bit purists over there.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't they're not too tolerant of messing with Guinness, but at least the last time I was there, it's still acceptable. If you were a woman, you're
Mhm.
it's cool to get the black currant with your
Yeah.
Guinness, but a man is not allowed to. And
No, and
so
I support that. I'm all about the patriarchy with that.
yeah,
Smile a while
exactly. And
Smile a while for me, Sarah says, "Good ginger beer is delicious. I keep it on hand. So many good drinks to be made with ginger beer." It's
oh,
true.
yeah, mhm,
Yeah, you
mhm,
mix that up and you can make a, Moscow Mule. It's just some really delicious drinks that you can make, you know?
yeah, yeah, no, it's good stuff, and so I think we've, been through, I'm thinking of all the different whiskeys, we've
Yeah.
had, the, I
I do have
guess.
one cocktail recipe that I
Oh,
wanted to
yes,
share with you.
please. Yeah,
So, I'm gonna share this, and let me do that.
okay.
Let me see. Here it is. So this is one that I learned at when I was going to some frou-frou cocktail bar, back when I used to have to travel for work, which thank God I don't have to do that anymore. But this
Yeah.
is a cocktail called the Toronto. As you can see, they serve this up, meaning no rocks. But when I had it, they were using whiskey rocks. So the big, gigantic iceberg square rocks
Oh.
in in a rocks glass, and I actually like that a lot. So what goes into a Toronto? So they go through the history of all this. It actually goes back to a cocktail recipe from 1922, like a lot of these classic cocktails do. Um, a lot of people like to do this with rye, in Canadian rye. I actually think this works exceptionally well with a good top shelf bourbon. I mean, like a really good one.
Mm.
Let's take a look at what's the ingredients are. So this again says Canadian rye whiskey, Alberta dark batch. This is
Mm.
something I'm going to try and hook up with that 70s rock fan because he's in Alberta because I want to see if we can maybe make a trade. Um, but you put in something called Fernet Branca, which I actually found at a liquor store. I had to drive like 2 hours to go, but it adds this wonderful taste to it, and it's actually Italian. Simple syrup, which is again just distilled sugar boiled down, Angostura bitters, and then garnish with an orange wedge. The way that I recommend you do this is get some crystallized ginger and muddle it in the bottom. But
Ooh.
this, in a lot of ways, you see, it's almost like jazz. In some ways, this is very much like a Manhattan, except for you're putting the Fernet Branca in, which adds this more herbal upscale type of a thing. I've also seen people do this and put a little bit of maple syrup in it too. But again, it's a fantastic drink. Um, all of these, Manhattan, the Toronto, good sipping, chilling, the old
Mhm.
fashioned, it's kind of like a whiskey lollipop, and before you know it, you've had 8, and which is not a bad thing. Just
Yeah.
be aware that 8, maybe get a taxi,
Yeah,
So,
always have a designated driver or a taxi,
yeah,
Uber, whatever,
yeah,
because you never these things can sneak up on you too, because
yeah,
the whole thing about liquor, you talked about like a more civilized age. Well, people would maybe drink a lot, say about mint juleps and stuff. There was also more respect, I think, toward liquor, kind of like if
yeah,
this is the right analogy, like the way people respect
yeah.
guns. You know what I mean? It's like, listen,
Yes.
liquor is it's not something you mess around with.
It
You know,
it has to do with shame, but it has to do
yeah.
with shame. I mean, like, there was a time, and I happen to agree with this because I still grew up in those days in the 70s where
Mhm.
you didn't if you were a man and if you looked like a fool in front of the other men,
Mhm.
you would have rather been run over by a truck.
Yeah.
Like, hold it together. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Don't walk around with, let's say, a loaded pew pew, like pointing at people. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to wonder what the hell's wrong with you because you
Yeah.
need to be responsible. And it's different if you're hanging out like in the hunting shack and you've got your bucks and everything's stowed, you're good, and it's like you're going to get
Mhm.
hammered. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But I've gone deer hunting with people who got absolutely destroyed,
Mhm.
like puking in the front yard while I am literally going to walk out to a deer stand when it's still dark. Like, they never went to bed. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to hunt with people like
Yeah,
that.
it's
You
like,
know what I
no,
mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It's like
Yeah.
everything and I can say as a woman, sometimes when people can't hold their liquor basically, because if someone is so drunk that they're out of control, it is very unattractive. And then yes, usually often where you get hit on and you're just like, "Creeper, get the hell away from me." You're an
Yeah.
idiot. Um, yeah,
You're
it's
barmy. Yeah, there it is. Look at that.
yeah, I used to bellhop and my grandmother worked behind the front desk and she would have me get her a White Russian every night. Oh yeah, right, White Russian with
That's a
Baileys.
wonderful drink. It's a wonderful drink, and I mean, talk about some great flavors. I had to make
Mhm,
a bunch of those around Christmas time when I was in there a lot because everybody had Christmas parties and things like that, and, they bought the whole restaurant out, and so we're basically, you just had everything coming at you. But it's one of those delicious drinks, that you can have a couple of those. You really
mhm,
can and be just fine, but it just depends on how heavy of a hand you have with that old vodka, you know?
yeah,
So, yeah.
and of course, if you've had anything to eat, it's always a good idea
Yeah.
to have something in your stomach before you
Well, if
start
it's
having
Christmas and you're not putting on the pounds, you're doing Christmas wrong. Okay? Can we just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacob Ironside says you can't go wrong with coffee and alcohol, it's a good mix, mhm,
It's true,
especially
unless it's Four Loko, which is just caffeine and crack. Don't do Four Loko, kids.
But yeah, but there is something about when you're, like, really cold and you come inside and you make yourself it'll heat you up. It's very nice and very cozy. Hot chocolate with whiskey is also
Peppermint
something.
schnapps,
Mhm.
peppermint
Oh,
schnapps,
peppermint schnapps. Yeah.
we used to do that a lot, in my middle school years. Just gonna
Mhm,
park that right there, you know.
mhm.
Um, I remember they lowered or they raised the drinking age to from 18 when I was in middle school to 21, and we were all really unhappy about that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but you know, I was 6 feet tall starting in the third grade, and it was a small town, so yeah,
They look the other way. Yeah.
no harm, no foul. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, don't be an idiot. Don't do stupid things. You know,
yeah.
it's kind
That's
of
good
simple.
advice actually for anyone under all circumstances, so
Yeah,
for
especially
sure.
Bob Iger at Disney. You know,
Oh gosh,
stop
yeah.
doing stupid things. You know, but that's
At
not
this
the
point,
show.
I'm like, "Run yourself into the ground, see if I care." Um,
I felt that way for a while, quite
mhm,
honestly, and I don't think they understand that they have done irreparable harm to their brand. In that,
mhm,
I like. It's not just people like us on YouTube that seem like we're screaming into the
mhm,
night. I think there's a lot of normies that just literally like, I'm not going to go see that. I'm not going to go see that because of that agenda and what they're doing with,
mhm.
younglings. Like there's a lot of people walking around feeling that way. The
Yeah.
media is going to tell you that, oh, you're totally outnumbered by the woke masses. It's total
No,
bullshit.
numbers don't
Total
lie.
bullshit.
Yeah. Well, my
Yeah.
mom, she went to see with my brother the Indiana Jones movie, and she's, of course, not part of this whole,
Hmm.
"Oh,
Hmm.
Lucasfilm, all that," and she was just like, "That was this was a bad movie." She said, because we've always loved Indiana Jones, and she said she
Hmm.
was bored, and my brother was bored, and it was just dumb.
Well,
Um
Prophet of the Dragon, I mean, Nerdporeal Life Farm made Prophet go see the movie, so he took his son with him, who's Easton. I think he's 12, and Easton was so bored, he's sitting there playing his Switch the whole time, going,
Mhm,
"I'm bored, I'm bored." And
mhm,
Steve just kept getting more and more angry, and then of course released it on a video. But Smile a While for me says my grandpa
mhm.
used to
Yeah.
mix peppermint schnapps and vanilla ice cream and call it a grasshopper. That
Mm.
there's a whole lexicon of ice cream drinks that
Yes.
were still very popular through the 70s and 80s, and it was part of supper club culture. Supper club things that started, you can debate that. Like
Mhm,
in the 40s after World War II, in the 50s, when people would get out of the cities and go to like the lake or the woods, you saw it a lot on the East Coast, but also people in Chicago fleeing and going up to Michigan and northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that, where they would go and they would have the fabulous wood paneling. And these fabulous drinks and like the big salad bar and everything was deep fried and relish trays, all that stuff. But that's where grasshoppers, pink Cadillacs, golden squirrels, all of these ice cream drinks that are absolutely delicious. Now, they're a pain in the ass to make, but they
mhm.
are really, really great when someone else does all the work. So,
Yeah. Brandy Alexander also,
mm,
you can have it also with ice cream, and they're desserts in themselves.
totally. Yes, they are. Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Um,
Palate cleanser after fried food. Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna put this up there because 'cause I'm not sure what he's talking about. I will leave it to your
No, take it off
judgment.
the screen. Take it off the
Okay,
screen. We're
okay,
just going to
that's what I was
pretend that didn't happen. Yeah.
okay, you see,
Thanks,
I
Dos.
wasn't sure if that's what if it was because I honestly do not know.
It's
Alright.
about the things we talked about before we went live that you don't want to talk about in your show. That Nosferatu is the poster child for that.
Oh,
So,
understood, understood. Well,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just didn't know.
that's okay.
So in any case, before we go on to the roll 7, is last call. Is there anything you would like to add or something that you have not said already?
No, I mean, yeah, I've been known to pontificate on my channel, but I will say this. I mean, I think bourbon. It's just I've had this relationship virtually my whole life by virtue of my grandfather. He would blend his own pipe tobacco and then soak it in bourbon and put it on a cookie sheet and put it on warm in the oven so that my grandparents' house smelled like Prince Albert in a can with bourbon soaking it. So bourbon is just so infused to my DNA as to what I
Mhm,
perceive to be comfort and um, relaxation that I appreciate rye and Nathan Amanda Manethrin is a huge rye drinker, but I just and I do like Irish whiskey, I do, but I just always keep coming back to bourbon, and we can have friendly debates about what's the best bourbon, this or that or
Mhm,
this or, some people hate Maker's Mark. I like Maker's Mark. I like Woodford Reserve. I like Rare Eagle. I happen to think that Wild Turkey 101 is probably one of the most perfect bourbons to use in mixed drinks because you can taste the alcohol in the bourbon no matter how much you water it down.
mhm.
So, and there are people who are going to be like, "What the hell are you talking about? I hate that." But at the end of the day, bourbon's like who you fall in love with. Like you
Mhm.
don't know why people get married to who they would because you would never do it, but that doesn't mean that it's not right for them. So,
Exactly. The best one is the one that you like to drink.
yep, yep.
Wine is a whole different story, and of course, I'm not gonna go
Oh, I'll
into
judge
that.
you for wine. I will judge you for
Oh, yeah,
wine.
I will definitely
I
judge
will
on
judge
wine.
everybody for wine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wine is actually something that as part of my geography studies, I did the geography of wine. So, yes, I can prove, yes, there is superior wine,
Mm,
but that's a whole other story for another
yeah.
day. But,
Yeah.
yes, wine is complete judgment. There is a right answer there when it comes to wine. Let me just say that's all I will say
It's
about
true.
that. All right, I'm a big
Oh,
yeah,
wait. What was that?
I'm currently
Big
enjoying Tin
fan.
Cup
Oh, big
whiskey from
fan. Sorry.
Colorado. Okay,
Those are
yeah.
both good because I saw Smile a While for Me. Wait, who was it? Oh yeah, Roman of the Empire says I'm a big fan of turkey. Wild Turkey 101, where Wild Turkey rare breed. A little
Mhm,
spendy for that one, but boy, it's really good. I just like 101 because again, you can mix it, and I like to do a lot of press.
mhm,
So I will cut a lemon in half and then take the end off, and then I have a hand press. So I will squeeze that fresh lemon into a glass. I will add simple syrup that I've made myself, 5 or 6 shakes of bitters, and then a very healthy pour of Wild Turkey 101, and then top it off with club soda because I like a very sour, semi-sweet lemon old fashioned. And again, there's no wrong way to do this. Some people do it with orange and do a press. Some people even do it with grapefruit. I think they're weird, but again, like it's just you know, it's great to hear what other people love. It doesn't mean we all have to like it, but
yeah,
yeah.
precisely. Rare bread is worth it. Okay, yeah,
Rare breed,
rare
totally
breed.
worth it. Oh,
Okay.
Nosferatu wants to know about Faces of Death. You know, that was really I remember watching those, back in the day. Not for Teresa's show, but we should talk about it
Yeah, I was
another
gonna
one
say,
time sometime.
yeah, I think, but hey, yeah, like I said,
Yeah,
another time at another place. Because speaking of,
it's true.
likes and tastes, there's definitely a like and a taste in here at Miss Martin
Yeah,
Muses. But
yeah.
we do have the roll seven, so I
Woohoo!
encourage everyone in the chat to participate. This is our pub game. We have 20 questions and a D20, and I roll it 7 times. Um, so and Steve's not in the chat, so I don't have to give credit to him because it was his idea,
You should be
and
sleeping. You should be
he
sleeping in his igloo over there.
yeah,
Yeah,
he is. He's back on to sleep, so he's on a normal sleep schedule because he lives a vampire existence sometimes as
yeah.
well. But here we go. Here we go. Yes, this was his idea and tested by him, my mother, and my father. Here, got
Mhm.
number one, and it is. Okay, what is the most annoying question you've ever been asked?
Oh god. It has to be any number of interview questions over the years,
Mhm,
for what I do for a living. I I wanna be careful not to dox myself.
mhm,
I very frequently have to, meet with people who want me to help them with problems within their organization, and it doesn't matter how much experience I have, all the other places I've been, they all wanna run through their bullshit HR
ugh,
psychological profile thing, which let's be honest about it, even in my 20s, I would fail it. So I've learned how to answer this without telling them what I really think of their stupidity in asking me these questions. But what would you say is the most difficult situation you faced, or tell me a situation where you failed? Well, in coming to this interview or taking this phone call, like that is screaming in my skull when I do
mhm,
these, video conference calls or whatever it is, or, you know, just, tell me about your management style. Well, I haven't killed anyone yet. I
mhm,
mean, that I think is a victory, and not a lot of people understand not just the humor, but also the truth in that statement, especially
yeah.
dealing with Gen Z, offense intended. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Okay, that's a no, those I am completely with you. Those are insane. and quite annoying. What are you most afraid of?
How do I phrase this on your channel?
Yeah.
That the things that I talk about on my woo woo show and that we can all see happening around us, that they are going to be left unchecked. In that being part of Generation X, we're the smallest generation in American history. You know, we're wedged
Mhm,
between the narcissistic baby boomers and then the narcissistic know-it-all millennials. No offense intended, it's broad generalization. But that, boomers aren't going to be with us for forever. So
mm,
it's just, our tiny, tiny little sliver of latchkey kid. We don't trust anything Generation X. And guess what? They've already pushed us out of a lot of corporate roles because we're a pain in the ass. Why? Because we tell the truth.
mhm,
We tell the truth and what the cost really is to do things, and that it's what you're about to do is going to fail. Well, millennials don't have that problem because they don't know how to actually do what it is that they're talking about. So of course they're going to say yes. But finally answer this question is all the things that we're seeing, all the lines being sprayed in the sky and all the stuff
mhm,
they're putting in things they want you to put in your body and what they're doing to our food, and now they're trying to block out the sun. Look that one
mhm.
up.
No, I
Look that
believe it.
one up. I mean, it just happened today. Good old Joey was talking about doing that. Doesn't need our vote, but that all these things that we see that are right in front of us that YouTube won't let us talk about
Mhm,
and that they try and block on social media, that people aren't going to stop it. It's my
mhm.
greatest fear, you know?
Yeah, no, precisely. That it's not gonna matter, and we're gonna lose our culture, our society. I mean, I'm
Look
just
at France.
I was
You
about to
think that's
say, that's
you
exactly what I was gonna
think
say. I am
that's you
beside
think
myself.
that's just an accident? I mean, do you really think that's just an accident? Because
No.
that's it's already starting to spread, and I'll stop talking because
Yeah,
it's your
yeah, we'll
channel.
stop talking about it, but I'll just say this, that France is breaking my heart.
Yeah,
It started with Notre Dame. When Notre
which
Dame burned, I just was
crime against humanity,
beside myself.
crime against humanity.
Beside myself. I mean, we're never gonna get it back because we can't.
No,
Um,
and now
oh,
and it's just a coincidence. They've been doing the same things to all of our works of art and all of our entertainment. Just a coincidence,
totally a
Teresa.
coincidence.
Totally not connected.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Where do you feel most out of place? Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
tricky one.
no, it's just there's a lot of ways to answer this
Yeah.
question. I made some conscious, deliberate decisions to leave large cities a long time ago. Not because I'm
Mhm,
a survivalist, but I've lived in a lot of big cities on the East Coast. Just going to say that,
mhm,
and some on the West Coast, and I go out of my way not to go anywhere near them anymore. And the last time I lived in one of those big places was probably 14, 15 years ago when I could see what was coming down the road. Well, having to go back to those places
mhm,
and everything that I was sure was going to happen has happened and more, and it's even more crazy than I could ever imagine. I feel most out of place there because I don't have to live in the middle of nowhere in a small little place, where I know most people's names and everybody flies the American flag and everybody has the back the blue on their truck and stuff like that. Like it's a choice.
mhm.
And I'm not saying it's idyllic in Mayberry because there's some assholes here too.
Yep.
But what it's not is it's like this weekend, 4th of July, where everybody has emptied out of the I-5 corridor from Portland and Seattle and the Seattle suburbs and is now here. And they brought their energy and
Mhm,
their cruelty and their weirdness. Like I saw a dude with wearing a dress with boobs and a beard that was taller than I was. Like I don't generally see that in my grocery store. Like I
mhm,
walked, I'm like, what the hell? And then I guess it was his boy. I don't know. I don't want to misgender them. Like looked like Rafe Judkins, like chunky beard. And it's just like, and they're sitting there with these affectations and look at me and I'm wearing, my American flag hat. Like I am a cannibal peasant. So it's that kind of stuff where it's that big city weird dystopian reality that they're pushing within our entertainment that
mhm.
I have gone out of my way to not live around. And then it comes to where I live here in the middle of nowhere and it's like it's a lot. It's just a
Yeah.
lot, you know?
Sometimes you just wanna Just get away.
That's why I moved here. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I got away. There's like I could start swimming, but then I'd end
Mhm.
up in China. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
have
there
nobody
you
for that.
that wouldn't be any good. That wouldn't help us, with our
Mhm.
problems. What is your favorite
Yeah.
movie and why?
Oh, I remember you asked this question last week, and I was like, I know how would I answer that question. And I'm gonna cop out on this, and I say it depends. And why it depends is I think there's some of the greatest movies of all time. I have to say that I think Casablanca is a perfect movie. I think
Mm.
Jaws is a perfect movie. I just
Yes.
rewatched that yesterday. But at the same point, there are so many movies that were so integral in moments of my life because I'm 53 now, and just movies that helped me define what it was to try and survive where I came from, like The Breakfast Club.
Mhm. Yeah.
The John Hughes movies, why they were important in the 90s, when you're struggling after you get out of college. And yeah, I had to pay my loans back. So don't tell
Mhm.
me about that bullshit. And then, like just all the movies we saw then. And then just, you know, what do I have the most of? I have gone out of my way to get every John Wayne movie restored that I can. I just was
Oh,
watching Real Lobo and El Dorado. And these movies being a critic of pop culture with, a channel like mine, we see a lot of terrible things that aren't
mhm.
stories, that don't have characters, that don't have arcs, that don't have stakes. And you sit down and you watch John Wayne and El Dorado, and you believe in all of it. You believe in who the bad guys are, and they're not sympathetic. You believe who the good guys are, the not so good guys are, and you're just there. You know, it tells its own story, and it has
Yeah.
no time for like these movies could have been allegories about the Korean War, or these movies could have been allegories for Vietnam. They weren't. They were
Mhm.
meant to escape from what was going on. And now they've gone out of the way to create things which are failing over and over and over again. So, I mean, to answer your question, there's a lot of them. I love the original Indiana Jones. I love Star Wars. I always will. And by that, I mean the three movies that George Lucas made and the one good prequel, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
In just sitting down and rewatching those, whether it be Casablanca or To Catch a Thief or North by Northwest or The Birds or Rear Window, just to go down that road, or you can put those on anywhere. And
Yeah.
I've got a niece who's 6, and if you put on a black and white movie for a 5-year-old who doesn't English is not her first language. It's her second language. She was sitting down and watching Casablanca in English with my brother, who's an English teacher in Eastern Europe, and she didn't get up.
Yeah.
She wasn't bored. I think that's what tells you what a good movie
Yeah.
is when you have children who haven't had their heads screwed up with activists watching these things, getting it. It's like playing the Beatles for kids. Like you could play it for somebody in the Amazon rainforest, and they probably start dancing. You know?
Yeah. They're universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, but I agree with you about Jaws. It's very rare that you can say a movie is completely perfect, and that is one of them.
It is, and I actually watched it with Purple Valkyrie the other day, and she was giving me all this commentary about how Spielberg wanted to make it a comedy,
Oh my
and like they
gosh.
wanted Lee Van Cleef for um I'm getting stream brain for Quint, and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And it's like they wanted to make it more bloody, but the shark wouldn't work, so they had to make it scary. And to talk about all of these happy accidents
Yeah.
leading to what was the very first blockbuster. Because
Yeah.
there was never a blockbuster movie until 1975 when Jaws came out. It's a true
Yeah.
story,
Yeah,
you know?
it was, yeah, because even the movie, like, for example, Gone with the Wind, that was huge, it wasn't quite the same. It was a different era in the whole idea of the summer one. Um, and of course, I would say that another perfect movie besides the requisite Empire Strikes Back
Yeah.
is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It is the perfect movie, and it's the magic of that. They couldn't capture it in any of the follow-ups, like, at all.
Mm-mm.
Like, Crusade got it, but really, I mean, again, growing up with my, Greatest Generation grandparents a lot,
Mhm.
uh, World War II generation,
Yeah.
I watched all those serials, like Flash Gordon with my
Mhm.
grandfather and
Yeah.
the Cisco Kid. and they were 15-minute reels, and they would pick up with the next story.
Yeah.
That's what, that is what George Lucas picked up on with Star Wars, because Star Wars is nothing but a series of perfect 2-minute scenes put
Yes.
together into a perfect movie. And that's what they kind of did with Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was the same philosophy, where you're watching a
Mhm.
15-minute reel, except they've taken all the transitions out of it. And that's what made it timeless and classic. You
Mhm.
know, people can still make movies like this. I think
Yeah.
that they can. Um, they won't. So
No. No, and that's why I have not been to the cinema in more than a year. The last movie I saw in the cinema was the Maverick movie, but, there's no point in
no,
going to the movies
it
anymore.
in order to get out of my little town, I have to drive around a mountain trail, and there is a movie theater. And I go around the
Mhm.
corner every week and I see what's there. The Flash
Mm.
is already gone. Little
Mhm.
Mermaid's gone. They got Indiana Jones. I drove past it today. Parking lot's half full. Like, nobody
Yeah.
cares. And there's
Nope.
nothing to do here. I mean, don't get me wrong, you got the ocean, the mountains, are very outdoorsy, but it's not cosmopolitan. And if you're a city slicker coming in here and you're like sunburnt, it's not like you can go hang out at some hoity-toity place, right? So you're
Yeah.
probably going to go and see a movie, but nobody even wants to do that. But I
No.
lament that. I lament that, Teresa. I think the last really positive movie going experience I had was A Quiet Place Part Two,
Mm.
and not a perfect movie, but I do like the world that they created in that series. I saw Batman for the channel. I thought that could have been a classic movie, but like everybody said,
Mm.
about 30-40 minutes too long. And then of course I watched the Multiverse of Madness, which broke me, and that's why I'll
Mhm.
never cover Disney Marvel on my channel again.
No,
So
it's total waste of time. I will say I am very excited though about the new movie by, Jim Caviezel,
I
the
am too.
yeah, I am gonna go see that in the cinema,
It's gonna be
and
rough.
I'll tell you, the
Yeah.
actor who sorry, the director and the creator of it, I forget what his last name is, but he's Eduardo. He made a
Mhm.
movie called,
Yeah.
Bella, and true story, he showed up at my church one Sunday.
No
True
way.
story, because 'cause I'm minding my own business, and all of a sudden, sister's like, "Come here, come here, come here, come here." I'm like, "She's never
Your
asked me to."
nuns, you got like covert nuns, like totally scoping out who's coming in. I love it.
Well, no, she's not covert, she was in the habit, but
Okay.
she never but yeah, I got you. But it's funny
Ninja
because,
nuns. I was trying to make a
yeah,
joke.
and she goes I'm like, "She never wants me to sit with her." I try to avoid her, you know what I mean?
Is he a
And
perfume? What is
and so I'm like, "Okay, okay, fine, I'll come sit next to you." And then she points, and kneeling in front of me is Eduardo, I can't pronounce his last name, the guy who's the
Yeah.
director and and holy crud, I did not pay attention to one thing at mass. I was just like, "Oh my gosh," because of course, he is a very fine-looking man, but he a great filmmaker, and he's the one who is making this film. So that's my story about him, is that the 2 of us were geeking and girling out, over this very, very
I
good-looking
love
man.
that you were objectifying him in church. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, objectifying him in a holy way because
Holy way.
it's
Holy way,
possible.
says Ms. Martin Muses. Listen to
Hey, true
this.
story. True, yeah,
It's
wait
some
for it to
coke
count.
going on over here, Teresa. Oh
Oh,
my
well, hey, but
God.
well, here's the story. Just because you're religious, that doesn't mean you don't appreciate the beauty
I
that God
agree. That's
allowed
why
made.
Catholics had big families. I mean, that wasn't
Yeah,
just
where
a
did
store coming in. Let's be honest about
yeah,
it, right?
we do sex and we do it better, but I digress. That is a
Oh.
whole other different story.
Don't
Maybe
make me tell my Catholic schoolgirl stories from back in the
all I
day. This
gotta
is
say.
not the time for that. We're just gonna say
Well,
that. Yeah.
watch my well, no, maybe I'll do a Catholic explaining on it about the church's teaching about sexuality and why it's hot. All right, here we go. Oh wait, I try not to give away the numbers. What is your favorite excuse when you are late?
The internet was out.
Okay, okay, that's part of your job, yeah.
It's work. We'll just say that. I mean, otherwise I'm one of those people, I try to leave early, and not be late, because if I'm late, I kind of get frustrated, because I have had people be late to me all the time. And I go out of my way to not do that for people. If I'm late, it's because I'm taking enemy fire from the Viet Cong or something like that, or something legitimately bad has happened. I will call and let you know. But, sometimes your alarm doesn't go off because I work different hours. I'm on the West Coast, but I have East Coast clients. So you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning because it's their time. And, sometimes you may have had one old fashioned too many on a Sunday, not wanting Monday to come. And yeah, it's funny how the internet just is out sometimes,
Yeah. Yep. It happens. But on the other hand, yeah, mine is usually the real excuse is like traffic, traffic. Uh, I'm a smile for a while, a smile a while for me. I'm never late. 10 minutes early is never late enough to cause a panic attack. Yeah. Well, I always say it's if you're on time, you're late. That's what I will say to my orchestra.
Oh, you're
Because
one of those. You're one of
yeah,
those.
well, yeah. Well, you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared because you got to be all ready. But I digress. But I do understand traffic because traffic is insane nowadays. Especially if you live in the city. All right, what is this?
You're not going to show it, but Jacob Ironsides, your excuse is reality quite often. Let's be honest about it.
Oh,
So
maybe
yeah,
I missed it. Okay. Oh, there it is.
yeah. Well, yeah, you can put
Oh,
it up, I guess. But yeah, yeah.
okay. Oh, well, usually, I'm used to people making women jokes about driving. When okay. So, um, this next
It's a
question.
real thing. It's a real
What,
thing.
wait, where did it go? Shoot. I
Did
lost
you lose your D20?
no, I
Because
didn't lose my D20. I lost my
I
place.
have backup bags of D20s all over the place around here.
Yeah, oh,
So
I
if you
do
need some,
too.
you just let me know.
Oh,
So
I have them. Well, I have to have them because when we play our D&D game, I lose them all the time or they roll off the
I've got
table.
my good ones, like I've got a leather roll up
Uh-huh.
gaming thing where I can roll the dice on it. So that's where I keep my good ones. But I got a bag of these just because, sometimes you just want to like give them to people as Christmas presents, or you just want to roll dice. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just it goes like graph paper and dice, just
Mhm.
sometimes you just want to roll a D10, see what you get,
Darn right. Well, I use them all the time, like even for like what kind of tea I like to drink in my chores. And when I used to do grading, used to organize it with my D20s. We have what is the most immature thing you do? Oh dear.
now or ever.
Uh,
Because
uh,
there's a
uh,
long
uh,
list to say
okay,
that.
I guess it doesn't specify, does it?
Read me the question again. Give me
Okay.
an example of what someone else has said because I'm trying to figure out what that is.
Well, one person said he collects toys, for example,
Oh,
but
well, have you seen? I mean, that's only what fits back here. All right, hold on. Let me show you something. I'll be right back. Okay. I mean,
oh no, here we go. Yeah.
like there are things that I can't put on the screen. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like I got this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I collect these full size sets of these, and they're remarkable. They're just these are so much fun, and I have tons back here. You can't see. I have the 1/6 scale, Lord of the Rings stuff. I will buy things like this and send them as gifts to people who don't collect toys.
Mhm.
I don't think it's immature though, because in some ways we kind of have to curate our own museums. I mean, I'm reaching a place in my life where I don't think I'm old, but the world is certainly vastly different than it was even 10 years ago.
Yes.
And if I want these things, if I want them, I need to get them because they're not making any more of them. These Lord of the Rings
Mhm.
figures, these were made over 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and it's not like I splurge on this and buy thousands of dollars worth of this shit because I don't, but I very selectively try and find things and then things that really mean something to me. And I don't consider that immature, you know?
No.
Um, what's something I do that's immature? I don't know. I think we can all be petty. We can all
Mhm.
have the seven sins, the seven deadly sins,
Yep.
with pride, gluttony, like all of those. That's the human condition,
Yeah.
and our struggle to try and keep control over all of those things to not cause a detriment, first of all, to ourselves, but to people around us, people like who care about us. I think
Mhm.
that's the human condition.
Yeah.
And you can see it in fantasy novels. I mean, you could say Sauron is a manifestation of several of the seven
Mhm.
deadly sins. You can pick any antagonist,
Yeah.
and then the hero's journey is generally about some of those seven deadly sins in some way or another being part of
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
pride pride
I don't know if
especially.
I'm copping out on this or not, but
No, not
yeah,
at all.
I immature. I don't know. I've been known to scream profanity at sporting events, I mean, on
Yeah,
television, but
yeah. I can say well, one of my most immature things that I do is my my sister and all that, we'll just, like, flip each other off and giggle.
oh, yeah.
It's
Oh, no.
you know what I
It's
mean?
it's funny, like, you think all those crazy dynamics you have with your siblings, like the fights you had and
Yeah,
how your little brother did this, because 'cause I'm the oldest of,
yeah.
several children, and it's like and then the middle child did this, and then the youngest did that, and it's like, you think that's gonna change? No, it just gets worse. Like you're
Yeah,
all doing it only more passively aggressively or more bitchily or whatever it is, the older you get.
yeah,
That's the lie of adulthood. You know what I mean? It's like totally the lie. Like, yeah, we're in charge, but maybe we shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah, we're more immature than the rest of
yeah,
people.
we're doing the same stuff. Like it's middle school, like, hey,
Yeah,
you took my thing, and it's like, oh my God, you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, okay, and last but not least, let's see. My goodness. I'll tell you, I'm notoriously clumsy. That's part of the problem here.
You lost
All
your
right, here,
D20 under
yeah.
the sofa.
Tell
Okay.
me something tell me something on your bucket list.
I have been to a lot of national parks and Canadian provincial parks, but there are a number of parks that I haven't been to. And a lot of it has to do with those parks are the most popular ones in the United States and
Mhm.
Canada. And the logistics and the cost involved in them, I just can't rationalize, like, just can't. Just because you can spend
Yeah.
that money doesn't mean you should. And I have this ridiculous practical streak with that. But I really, really want to go to Yosemite, and
Oh.
then the Grand Canyon. Those are the 2 big ones that I haven't been to yet, and, but I've been to virtually every other park, in the Western United States and a lot of them on the East Coast too, and in Texas, and there are things that I also wanna see, like, I'd like to go to Antarctica. Why? I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe I'll find
I
alien
was gonna say, could
remains.
you crazy? Okay, I was like, "You're gonna freeze."
Yeah, I mean, I I've scuba dived, it's alright,
Yeah.
I hate sharks, like, if I could carry a machine gun and go scuba diving, I'd feel a lot safer. But, I mean, I I made a decision after I turned 40, that I wasn't gonna forestall joy anymore,
Mhm.
and that conspicuous consumption was not how I wanted to live my life anymore. So now I try and live in a place where I would go on vacation.
Mhm.
And it's not Hawaii, and it's not the Côte d'Azur, and it's not Paris. I mean, thank God it's not Paris
Yeah,
now,
I was
right?
gonna
I
say
mean,
Paris,
who
yeah.
knew that was gonna happen?
Yeah.
But, it's just, what is it that's important to me? And so I love trees, I love big mountains, and,
Mm.
I love just rolling, empty, endless, rugged beaches. And, I'm not a huge fan of people. So I tried to find a place where that's the case so that when I get up in the morning and I have to endure work like we all do, that I
Mm.
can ride for 5 minutes and then walk on a beach endlessly, you know,
Nice.
and look at the mountains. And nothing in life is ever perfect. Nothing is
No.
ever perfect. But you can decide what it is that's a nice to have and what's an essential. Because I think a lot of our misery is caused by confusing things that we think we should have with what we really need.
Darn right.
And um, you know, like, I don't know, I'm not gonna talk about economics, I'm not gonna talk about, all that the adulty stuff out there,
Mhm.
but you didn't call me simple, but, um, that's how I try and live my life now, is not worrying about corporate stuff for a whole lot of reasons,
Mhm.
I do have a career, I've been doing it for a long time, and, I have learned to take my hands off and stop trying to save complete sociopaths from saving themselves. And my life has been infinitely easier since then. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? So,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I have you know how they always say what was it in City Slickers?
Mhm.
What's the most important thing? And he says it's that one thing, and Billy Crystal's like, "Well, what is it?" He says, "That's what you have to find out for yourself."
That's it. And that's it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like we were talking about with bourbon, like, what's your flavor? What do you like to do with it? Or do you even like bourbon? And part of it I think is the serenity prayer, you
Mhm.
know, which is really applicable. I mean, I'm not in recovery. All right, I'm not. But I've taken a lot of people to AA that were my friends and
Yeah.
supported them. And you pick up a lot of those things and you recognize that those lessons are applicable to anybody.
Mhm.
Like stop thinking of yourself, stop making it about you, do nice things, don't be an asshole,
Mhm.
apologize when you do something wrong, like help other people out, be a mentor, good basic human things that also would have happened in tribal societies,
Yeah.
which is why we as a species were able to move forward. And now we're in a big hurry to jump right off of a cliff, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, you're, well said, well said. I made that decision at 35 though, so I was a little ahead of you. But it
They always say that women are a little more developed than
yeah,
men. No. Oh.
yeah.
And I'm
Well,
not talking about Dylan Mulvaney either,
yeah,
just
oh
so we're
gosh,
clear.
well, that's not well, never mind. I'm still bowing down to the YouTube or overlords
I
for
know
now.
it's not like I called them things and,
I know, I understand. No,
words.
I was about ready to say something
Talked
too.
about reality,
Eh,
Sorry.
oh
Yeah.
dear. Well, all I gotta say, there's been people that have said it better than I. That especially when these people try to when individuals try to take on, let's just say, feminine problems that happen at a certain interval, and it's like, no, 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 you don't get that. You know what I mean? You don't get that. That
Yeah.
it's like no, the that I won't go into more
Erasing
detail,
women.
but we'll look
No,
at the
erasing
videos.
women. I mean, erasing women and
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling, I think, has a much bigger pair of balls than
Mhm.
most men do now, especially in
Yeah.
media. I
Who'd
mean,
have
some of the
thought?
comments, and again, I'm not trying to simp for anybody, and I understand the
Yeah.
complexity of this woman in her other, I would say, challenging political positions. But, when you start questioning something that is literally coded into the us at a genetic level,
Mhm. Yeah, well, let me
that's
put it this way,
not
she,
real. It's not
it's
real. So,
it's her red
sorry.
pilled moment maybe, but, and
Yeah.
I'll take an ally wherever I can get them, but, that's, been okay, I'm just gonna shut my mouth.
It's
Like I
hard,
said, my
I
YouTube
know.
board.
No, because all we're gonna say is the perfectly obvious thing in what every other generation in America, in the world, and not only that, but on the planet,
Yeah.
has known when they were cavemen and cavewomen. Okay, now it's like, no, now you can do this and that and the other. And by the way, you get to give all of this money to somebody who invented all this stuff. Like they
Mhm.
always leave that part
It's
out.
a
Like you
scam,
forever
it's a
have to,
scam.
yeah. But anyway,
But,
can't talk about it on my channel. Yeah,
yeah, well, I'm getting into I think we're of similar age, and
yeah.
I'm getting into the very seriously, I don't give a cluck. I'm like, y'all wanna is this the world you want? Fine. I'm gonna go off be a little hermit and
That's what I'm doing.
yeah,
And I'm
do my
not
part.
running away from it because I'm
No.
perfectly ready to, let's just say, jump into action when needed. I
Mhm.
was gonna say that. Uh, what we need to do is build up walls to create a controlled environment to make this type of society that they want. That's what I want them to do. I want them to do all these things. Take volunteers and then put up a wall
Mhm.
and stop communication with the outside world for a year.
One could
And
argue
then we'll
there
come back and then we'll talk and we'll see who's alive
yeah,
then,
one could
you
argue
know?
they're already kind of doing that, and it's called, look, big cities. 'Cause
Well, they are, except people are fleeing them. Look at what happened to the Chaz in Seattle after 3 days.
yeah,
So here's the thing, spoiler alert, it has always happened that way, and it will always go down that way.
yeah,
Warlordism. Look at South Africa. There's another story. No one is talking about what's going on there. It's the model. Why do you think the stuff in France is happening? Same outcome. Just look
yeah.
that one up if you want to get really depressed. But
Yeah, well, it's a tale as old as time. Certain is the
yeah,
sun rising in the east, and of course, I think that we can all just stick together and write it out. And if not, well, we're all in good company. Well, where can we find you, sorry, I still want to call you Salty Texas, Salty Traveling. You see.
You can find me. I got a YouTube channel, Salty Traveling Sea. I've been putting out Wheel of Time content. Did a video on Rings of Power yesterday. I'm only covering things that I care about.
Mhm.
I've never tried to chase the YouTube algorithm, and I never will. I just want to talk about things that I care about. I'm fortunate enough to make good friends and work with great people like you and make good content and try and be real,
Mhm.
not be what it is that I think you want me to be, but this is kind of who I am, and it ain't perfect. But um, I am very grateful for this. I'm very, very grateful for your chat today and some of the
Mm,
questions, even Nosferatu talking about faces of death. And you know, whenever we approach these holidays, remember what they did to us a couple of years ago and how they took all this away and told us that they had to do it. And as it turns out, they knew they didn't have to. So I want to wish everyone a very hearty and patriotic happy 4th of July. And I an American, I love my country. I always have, and I trust my government only when it deserves it, which
yeah,
is not very much anymore.
which is as American as it can get, because that was exactly what the founders
No.
intended
That's what
intended.
Mark Twain said. I kind of stole it from Mark Twain.
Yeah, that's alright. I like to watch the musical 1776 during on Independence Day. It's actually a very, very well done.
It is. It is. There's that and how the West was won. If
Mhm.
you can find it in Blu-ray and the panoramic wide like aspect ratio, it's unbelievable. It's beautiful.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, Smile a While says, "Salty, it's, because of you that I'm 60% of the way through the first Wheel of Time. Yay!" And I've been staying up too late.
You need to let me know when you're done. If you're on
Yes.
social media, hit me up or leave it in a comment section because I would very much like to hear what you think about this. Not only me, but Nathan, the beard, and Steve and Nerdporial. We would love to talk to you. And it doesn't have to be, on
Mhm.
YouTube and nothing creepy. It's just there are so many people who've picked this story up, like Sam and Nick McCabe, Nerdporial, others, yourself, that have picked this thing up. And it's a great story. In Eye of the World, I've said this before, it was Robert Jordan's tentative novel. He was very experienced, like Teresa's talked about with Conan. But after the Eye of the World, when you get into the Great Hunt, which is what Rafe Judkins is about to gut and wear the skin of, like
Mhm.
Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, as far as an intellectual property goes. Um, the Great Hunt is a fantastic book. Dragon Reborn is a great book. It takes off. So I hope you're enjoying it. So
Yeah. I did read the first book. I don't know if you heard the story that makes a lot of people wanna
I
lose the will
do,
to live.
and
Yeah,
I
that just
get
because they
it.
broke up.
I get it. I get it. I have associations like that too. There are TV shows I won't watch because I'm holding a grudge from something 20 years ago,
Yeah,
and that's fine.
exactly. It was
Called being a human being.
2001. But
Yeah.
I think it's time I'm over the grudge. I need to just but I'm gonna start it from the beginning. I'm gonna start the first book and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to, be able to do that, and it looks like Smile has joined Twitter, so yay. And if one of my mods could put, Salty Texas as, uh
Traveling.
oh gosh, darn it! I'm gonna get
All
used to it.
right.
Salty Traveling. I know
It's
I well,
okay.
it's your brand. I need to be better with your brand. Salty
It's
Traveling.
really not a big deal. No, it's okay.
YouTube channel in the chat. I would appreciate. Actually, I made you a wrench, so you should be able to do it yourself if you want to. Um,
I
so
will.
you'll find me here in Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. I'm going to be continuing with Pub Crawl this Thursday with Nina Infinity. So a topic
Oh,
to be
cool.
determined, yes. So she's gonna be my 13th, 14th, I think. No, 13th. She's gonna be my 13th, and then that's gonna be the
Oh,
end of season 1. That's gonna be the end
wow.
of season 1 because we decided that we've going it's been 13 hours. We would be passed out by now. So, season 2 is gonna
I
be
may I
starting up.
make a suggestion that much like in The Hobbit, the 13 is an unlucky number and you go for 14, like Mr. Baggins was of the party. But I'm not gonna tell you how to run your
Oh,
channels.
well,
That's not
I'm
what I'm
not
gonna do.
superstitious. It's a good thing I'm not superstitious. But
I
damn it, now that you said that, but
ha! I jinxed you. Salty curse. There
Jinx.
you go.
Yeah, and Drunk April will be coming on. We're
Cool.
still working on scheduling issues. Magitech
Yep.
Mags is scheduled, and
Good.
many, many more. So if you wouldn't mind, give me a like, share, and subscribe, and of course, watch watch lots of videos. Help me get over that edge and get monetized. And I'll give you all cookies or something. Tomorrow it's gonna be Gettysburg, all Gettysburg, because
Wow.
yeah, the this of course is I
Pickets
forget which
charge.
anniversary of it. Yeah.
I was
State
reading about that the other
bayonets.
day. Turning point of the Civil War, wasting the flower of the Southern troops on a pointless uphill battle
Oh,
charge.
yeah,
Anyway,
the pick
that's
charge.
not this
Oh,
show. That's not
yeah,
this show.
no, it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm gonna do Pickett's Charge and, of course, Little Round Top, all of that, and
Yeah.
I mean, so and maybe even some talk about Vicksburg. Let's see what else is coming up. Oh, my Close
Yeah.
Encounters of the Soulfish Kind, I have recorded it. It turned out to be more than 60 minutes, so I'm still editing it. This is just insane,
It's
but
your white whale.
it's my white whale.
It's your Ishtar. It's
It's
turning into your Ishtar.
Well,
Yeah.
but as I say this at the beginning of the video, it's like, this is my life's work because solfege and music and the Kodai pedagogy method, all that, that is me. That's what I've been doing my entire life. So I've been trying to break it down so that people can understand and understand the genius of what was going on in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which of course John Williams knew,
I
being a
just got
musician.
that on Blu-ray, and I almost wanted the 4K, but I'm like, it's a movie from the 70s. You know what? Blu-ray's more than fine. And see you later, smile a while,
Yeah.
Sarah. Thanks for
Yeah,
being
so
here.
you'll yeah, so once you watch my video, it should be out by next week. You will
Cool.
understand what was going on with the hand signs between Lacombe and the alien and how the aliens used the communication. It's just so clever. They don't make movies like that anymore.
No.
Some more maybe Tolkien coming up. Yeah. So that's that. Thank you everyone for being here. A Dad Man Walking. Smile a while for me. Thank you very much. It's great to see you. And she said you joined. You just said you joined Twitter. So follow me, please, or we'll follow each other. If you followed Salty Traveling, then I
Ha
will. Oh, I
ha.
hate my life. I will be able to follow you from there. Dempsey, uh, Nestarafu, Jacob. Let's see. Did I get everyone? If I missed anyone, it was not intentional. The chat jumps and does all
Just
sorts of
blame it on
crazy.
me. Just say it's
Nancy.
Salty's fault.
Yeah,
You
Copa
know, like
Catania and
everybody
his
else
wife.
does.
Yeah, it's all entirely Corey's fault. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and be certain to drink what makes you happy and do so responsibly.